Profile summary. Hello, Elton here. In this summary, let's go over my addiction profile. First, there are a ton of videos on YouTube you can watch on the prevention of relapse. If you have watched any of them, you most likely seen the same things I did concerning how a person works up to a relapse. Many of the videos talked about relapse and how the recovering person craves the drugs before the relapse. They blame the relapse on triggers and craving, that the triggers and craving can cause one to relapse, and just by the sound or whatever can cause the person to start thinking about getting high. What I have heard and from my own experience, thinking about getting high comes before the triggers and craving. Well, it's like this: you are not going to walk around in society, to the store, to work, going fishing, and not run into a possible trigger. You get the picture. I don't like the word trigger, I never did and never will. The word trigger sets the stage for the recovering person to show episodes of fear. Trigger is just a word used in the English language and nothing more. Recovering addicts fear the word trigger because the professional model tells them to do so. I wiped the word trigger from my recovery system profile because it's impossible for the addict to not come up upon a so-called trigger. The alcoholic just out of rehab, all he has to do is take a little walk somewhere, and the chances are he or she is going to spot a bar. There are so many of them, one on every corner, and the bar is a good roadblock, especially to an alcoholic. A person falls prey to relapse because he or she does not know how to control his or her thinking. A simple thought will do it. All along in this profile I've been telling you to beware, be wise, and be there for yourself. If you find your thoughts starting to wander, a daydream in a sense, you need to stop the thought right away, and fix the problem before you lose your abstinence. If it's true that a person thinks about relapsing long before the actual relapse occurs, and a trigger helped the relapse to happen, then you're not doing your head work, I call it. Remember when I talked about self-talk and how beneficial it can be to the recovering person? Self-talk is like you talking to another person. I also talked about working your problem out in your head using the mindfulness self-talk method. How important is it to you to resolve the problem before you relapse? Just how important is it to you? One thing I did for about 2 months when I got out of rehab, I had someone with me just about all the time, a family member, friend, a buddy at work, my wife, and I instructed them to keep an eye on me. If I started to act kind of funny, or started to talk kind of crazy about using again, they knew what to do to stop my train of thought. A good friend will look after you, just tell him what he or she has to do, and make sure he will do what you tell him. I believe a person relapses because that's what he or she really wants to do. The recovering person actually talks himself into relapsing by constantly thinking about using. Then again, there is a big difference between an addict that hits bottom, and one that is forced to go to rehab, like a court order or going to keep a job, or whatever. Getting information out of an addict, especially one just out of rehab, about when he or she started thinking about relapsing is, in my opinion, not a good time to expect the truth out of the person. You're going to tell me that you're going to believe a person that has practiced telling lies for many years to tell you the truth? Again, in my opinion, don't count on hearing the real truth. Like I said earlier in the profile, the drug addict's no dummy, they know what they are doing, and he or she will most likely tell you something he thinks you want to hear. When you ask an addict a question, you have to be very careful how you word the question. It's not uncommon for the recovering addict to have dreams about his or her drugging experiences. These dreams usually occur somewhere between 30 to 90 days clean, but they do eventually go away. If you experience a dream about using, go into the self-assessment, write your dreaming experience down and study what you dreamed about. There is really nothing you can do about the dreams, so just hang in there and just realize that dreaming will occur, so just look at them as just a normal dream. Dreams can also show up as a daydream. In my opinion, these types of dreams are more harmful than a night dream. The whole idea behind addiction recovery is the process of change. Many attempting recovering people just don't make it because they have absolutely no idea what to change or how change should take place. Addicts are told they have to change their behavior and their addicted lifestyle. Many don't know how to make the change. I want to change, but I don't know how. If the attempting recovering addict cannot change his or her way of thinking, then change just simply will not take place. The QHI self-help recovery system is a recovery program that attacks the thinking processes of the addict, so that change can take place. Simply sitting in a group and talking about how bad, sick, crazy, and dumb you are will not change your brain chemistry away from addiction chemistry. I'd like to ask all that are listening to this audio one basic question: if the word trigger was not mentioned at all, would anyone, any addict fear the word trigger? Triggers are everywhere, they are going to be everywhere the recovering person goes. I made it a part of my recovery to go where I used to buy my booze. My favorite liquor store, I would go in and talk to the store owner, and of course, I had a buddy with me. It gave me the shakes at first, but after going back so many times, it turned out to be just another liquor store that sold booze. I did this to all the different places I used to go to drink my booze, and like I said, after a while they were just a place, and nothing more. The only thing I can think of that helped me with visiting all my so-called triggers was before I started visiting these places, I ran all the images of the places through NLP imaging therapy, and it appeared it really helped me. It didn't take long to get the word trigger completely out of my mind as a relapsing experience. It became just another word in the English dictionary. Triggers don't cause relapse, thinking causes the relapse. Just stop and think about it for a little while. The recovering addict must give much thought about self-discipline along with self-confidence. You have to discipline yourself when it comes to allowing your addiction thinking to completely turn your thoughts around towards wanting to use again. I would simply tell myself, stop thinking like that. Those thoughts are only going to get you in trouble. Self-talk is very important because when you're by yourself, who else do you have to talk to? It sounds like a joke, but really it's no joking matter. I would tell myself no as many times as I had to stop the negative thinking. Build your self-confidence up little by little, and slowly you will gain the confidence in believing you can make it through recovery without a relapse happening. Like I said, relapse is not a part of recovery, it's a continuation of your addiction. If you relapse, you may as well say, you were never really in recovery. Also, stopping all drug use and getting through withdrawal is the easy part of recovery. What's so hard about recovery is changing your addiction thinking to good positive thinking. You will find out that with every thought, there is an image that goes along with the thought. Once you master how to use thought stopping, you can rid the negative thinking just by pushing the addiction thinking that goes along with the image clean out of sight, and after a few times of pushing it out of sight, it simply will not appear anymore. If you can't bring up the thought, you can't bring up the image, and the thought and image is gone forever. This is the only way I know how to explain thought stopping. As far as the family goes, it's going to take time and patience on both parties. Learn to be open and honest with each other, and as time progresses on, so will the trust in each other. It's going to take complete honesty on both sides and the courage to say what has to be said and not blow up in the meantime about what was said. For the recovering addict, don't think your family should trust you just because you're off the drugs. It's not going to happen. Working on your feelings and emotions and the behaviors you're so used of living by may take you a lifetime to correct, but as time goes on it will turn out to be time well spent. Working with the drug addict is like riding a roller coaster. It's not easy, so you, the recovering addict, must give your family the time they need to straighten their life out, just like you have to straighten yours out. But the number one concern about recovery, both parties, the addict and the family members, must be truthful and have the faith everything is going to work out just fine. If you don't have the faith, then it most likely won't work out. In addition, stay away from self-judgment and those ever-popular resentments both of you have wandering around in your head. Learn what you can about forgiveness, and both the addict and family members need to privately seek forgiveness. The addicted lifestyle, it's ugly, problematic, and it's a lifestyle no family deserves to live. Rebounding from years of addiction problems takes time to work out, and if you don't take the time to do it right, you and your family will always be walking on eggshells, never really knowing what's going to happen next. One could ask, is there a right or wrong way to recover from drug addiction? Well, the way I see it, it's all up to the addict, the one that going through recovery. It all depends on how bad the recovering person needs to recover. It all depends on how hard the person is willing to work at his or her recovery program. As long as your program works to keep you clean, that's all that counts. I have been asked several times, how long does recovery take? The only real reply I could give them was as long as it takes. In one of my main references, Help Yourself, a Revolutionary Alternative Recovery Program, by Dr. Joel C. Robertson, copyright 1992, Robertson Institute, Limited, in Part 2, The System, Part 18, page 181, he covers the stages of recovery. Dr. Robertson covers 5 factors of recovery that will guide you through recovery. They are: 1. How long were you addicted? 2. How do you handle your thoughts when you aren't in control of the situation? 3. How severe was your addiction? 4. How consistent are you willing to be in your recovery? And 5. Are you seeking spiritual recovery? By answering these factors honestly, you will be processing for yourself a sense of control using your recovery plan of action. When persons use a controlled recovery plan, they make the process easier for themselves. If they try to force the recovery process, they get confused and sometimes fail. If they try to recover without a plan that warns them of the hazards of people, places, and things, they tend to become negative and angry. I have come across some recovering people that recovery was really making them feel much better about themselves. As a result, mistakes were made, and information that was needed to be gone over was missed. I found many mistakes, information that was missed, and did my best to straighten them out by getting them back on the right track with their recovery profile. The only advice I could give them was, hey, you got the rest of your life to get through recovery, just take it easy so you can manage your progress. Recovery means getting serious about your life and how you want to manage it, so just take your times, and manage your recovery the best way you can. If there's anyone out there that would like a copy of the book, just email me and I will send you a copy. I do believe the book, today, can be found on internet for a small price. In June of 2006 I had to retire from work because of a very painful spinal disease called DDD, degenerative disc disease. I was in so much pain it was hard for me to do anything. Before I had to retire, I went through several back operations such as with spinal fusion. I started having real bad pain around 2001, in which I started taking narcotics for the pain. Now, I know what you're thinking, I spent 25 years drinking the booze and popping the pain meds. Going on narcotics doesn't sound like a good idea, but I had really no choice because of the pain. Because of my own recovery system, I not one time thought about taking the oxycodone just to get high. The pain meds were for one reason, and that was so I could function somewhat like a normal social human being. I'm still on the oxycodone and will be most likely for the rest of my life. All one has to do is think about the situation that made taking the pain meds safe for me to take. My primary doctor realized that there was no more operations I could go through that would help me get any better, and after countless years, it seemed, of going to pain management doctors, that drug therapy was and still is my only choice. It's all how you think about your situation that's going to make it safe, and like I said, not one time did I ever think about crossing that line of taking more than the dose called for. If I can do it, others can do it as well. Here is where one's self-discipline comes into focus. I have the self-confidence that I can go along as I am doing and taking the pain meds for just one reason. Now I have one other thing to tell you. On July 11, 2018, I lost my wife of 54 years. She lost a very hard battle with cancer. She made me promise her that I would get my recovery system out to the public so that others could use it to possibly go through a successful recovery program. This recovery profile I devote to my wife. I promised I would do my best to get it out to the public. As I said in part 1, there is so much more to recovery than what's in this profile. If you can't stay with your own self-made program, then recovery may be lost for you, or you may find something else that you like. When I hit my bottom, I really wanted out and I was determined I was going straight. My drug high, my addiction to psychoactive drugs, just got too painful to deal with. Recovery is not easy, it's hard, and most likely will be the hardest thing you've ever tried to do, but to recover, you must stay with some kind of strategy program, and if you develop it yourself, you will find that recovery is not so bad. As you progress through recovery, you will feel your sense of self-pride getting stronger and stronger, and before you know it, your self-esteem has come back with you. So for now, beware, be wise and be there for yourself, and always remember, everything's controlled by the brain, therefore, as you think, so shall you be. Those 3 words I asked you to remember, involuntary, repetition and habit, all 3 represent the meaning of what is recovery. One day you may come across someone that needs help, maybe you just might be able to help the person. Now, there's one more piece of information that might help you. It's from St. Jude Retreat, 2017. Being close to someone who is struggling with substance use problems can be exhausting and overwhelming at times. The problem commonly referred to as addiction is misunderstood, and the misinformation being propagated by many addiction experts is misleading and, in many cases, it is completely wrong and harmful. By labeling problem substance use, i.e. addiction, an incurable disease, this notion systematically takes away the substance user's ability to overcome the problem. Worse yet, by labeling it a family disease, the responsibility for the substance user's behaviors are taken away from the only person who has control their behavior to change, the substance user, and placed on those who have no control at all, the family. This theory is not only mistaken, but it can also tear families apart. If you have attended any kind of therapy, especially family addiction therapy, you are likely familiar with terms like denial, codependent, and enabling. You have probably analyzed each of your actions and reactions to see how you may be contributing to the substance user's ongoing drug and/or alcohol problems. You may feel immense guilt over your past behaviors and conflicts with the substance user, as you are concerned they may have contributed to the substance user's behaviors today. You may be struggling with intense fear and anxiety for the substance user's health and well-being, both mentally and physically, and are now confused as to what you should do. In these situations, well-meaning family members, friends, counselors, and even acquaintances weigh in on what you should do, and each person's advice is different and many times conflicting. This leaves you more confused and frustrated than ever. So, what should you do? The answer may be simpler than you think. For each family, the answer is different. Even for individuals within families, the best course of action may be different for one person than for another. First and foremost, it is important to strip away the misinformation and ensure that everyone involved learns the truth about addiction, substance use, and choice. The overall goal is to educate the family on what addiction is and is not, and to help them separate their own happiness, success, and life goals from that of the substance user. Ultimately, our goal with this ebook is to help families of substance users build happy, successful lives regardless of what the substance user does or does not do. While it is true that you have no control over the substance user and his or her behavior, it is important to understand that by changing the relationship you currently have with the substance user and improving the quality of your own life, it is much more likely the substance user will follow your example and do the same. St. Jude Retreat, 2017. So for now, have a nice day. And I wish you much success with your recovery.